You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss Chris Voss from the Chris Voss Show. Welcome to the great show. We certainly appreciate you guys coming by. Thanks for coming in here. I know I start out the ramble with something random. I was drinking my little mug of beverage, my water here, but it's also mixed with lemon, limes, and something else, and just blew out my voice right as we were going to the show. So there you go. There's a fun little improv ramble there. A note to self: don't mix lemon, lime, and apple cider vinegar in your intermittent fasting in the morning. Hopefully you guys are all intermittent fasting. Welcome to the show, my family friends. We certainly appreciate you guys being here. The Chris Voss Show family that loves you but doesn't judge you. At least unless you're some idiot drinking lemon, lime, apple cider vinegar on his intermittent fast in the morning. We have an amazing, fun show for you. I think you're going to enjoy it as well. We've got a brilliant gentleman on the show. He's going to be sharing his insights and everything else. But until we get to that, we're going to hold him hostage and that data hostage on what he does. It's a hostage, guilt, and shaming plug show. As always, refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives, because you know what? You want them to be smarter when you're sitting around that Thanksgiving dinner this year. So tell them to subscribe. Say, damn it, John, Bob, Mary, Moonbeam, whatever. It's a joke. Tell them to subscribe to the Chris Voss Show. Go to itunes.com/Chris. No, you can't do that. You just go to iTunes. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, and see us over there on the TikTok. We need older people following us over there. Damn it. It's like all 13 to 17-year-olds. Today we have an amazing gentleman on the show. We always have amazing gentle people on the show, both men and women. And we're very inclusive that way. In fact, if you don't even know what you are, you're welcome to come on the show. I don't know who I am anymore. But clearly I'm an alien from another planet, or I'm adopted. I don't know which. You just spin the wheel, pick your thing. But we have an amazing gentleman on the show. Patrick Williams joins us on the show today. He is a passionate and inspiring public speaker. He is a creativity consultant, writer, artist, independent scholar, and visionary educator. Patrick has over 4 decades of experience teaching and facilitating deep learning to a wide range of audiences. He's also a TEDx speaker and an award-winning artist. He has exhibited throughout the USA, Japan, and China. His art is in public and private collections, and he's represented by galleries in Chicago, Seattle, Omaha, and Albuquerque. He holds black belts in Karate Do. Did I get that right?
You got
Patrick?
that right.
Oh, wow. I'm learning. See, I learn stuff on this show all the time. So is my audience. Aikido as well, with decades of experience training and teaching Budo. Was it Budo?
Budo.
Okay.
Correct.
I knew that. Yeah. Patrick's comprehensive experience, expertise, and synthesis of creativity and innovation is unparalleled. Damn it. This is what we tune into the show for. We get guests that are unparalleled. He is the founder and president of Satori Innovation, creativity consulting, and ideation. Is that ideation? Accelerator. Correct. There. See, I'm learning so many big words today. I'm going to be smarter, Patrick. Thanks for coming on the show. Welcome.
You're welcome very much. I'm glad to be here, Chris.
There you go.
That was the best intro ever.
Thank you. Well, we're going to put that on the TikTok, and we'll save that for that. We kind of went down a meandering thing there. I do intermittent fasting, and so
I do too.
It's very good for you. It's very healthy, huh?
It's great for you. Yeah, I highly recommend it.
But maybe mixing the lemon lime with the apple cider at the same time. Yeah, I usually keep those separate, and then now I see why. So give us the .com so people can find you on the interwebs.
Sure. Excellent. SatoriInnovation.com, and it can also be patrickwilliamsstaycreative.com. So both of those will go to the same website, which is my business site. And then I have a couple other sites, which are my art sites, patrickwilliams.com and celebrationflowerpaintings.com, which is not only flowers, but also nature paintings, so to speak. So in those several places, you can find a lot about me. And I have two Instagram sites, PMW Creativity and at PMW_camera. So one is a drawing site and one is a photography site.
There you go. I think I'm going to sell this drink as the official Chris Voss energy drink. How to
Perfect.
choke yourself on the thing. So you've got, I think, some of your wonderful art behind you. Is that correct?
Yes, I do. My
Mhm.
wife and I just had a show here in my studio about 2 weeks ago. It was her first two-dimensional art show, so it was a big celebration, and she sold a whole bunch of work. So it was well
There you go.
received and well liked.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
We should encourage our audience to, most people pick this up on audio, but check out the videos on all our different video formats and websites to see his artwork behind him as we chat. So, Patrick, give us a 30,000 overview synopsis of who you are and what you do in your words.
Sure. I am an artist. I've been an artist since I was 10-ish, and have taught art, taught martial arts. That's what Budo translates as. I've been in school systems as a visiting artist and a artist in residence. And throughout all that time, I gathered a lot of understanding and information about how children, but also how adults learn and express. And about, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I started contemplating how I could help people, other than just making art and teaching, how I could help people with their creativity. And at the time I was living in Boulder, Colorado, which is a hotbed of entrepreneurship, so to speak. And I had a lot of friends in those areas, and they encouraged me to do a deep dive into the business world to kind of evaluate if I had anything to give. And the more I dug into it, the more I realized that, yeah, there's a lot of need for the kind of the special areas that I am very familiar with, creativity, and that's what I started to develop. I have two manuscripts that I'm working on. One is for educators, and one is for business folks, entrepreneurs, and corporations. And they're both centered around my philosophy of creativity, which is what I've been developing for quite a few years, just mentally, but then the last 5 or 6 years, putting it down on paper and getting a more of a coherent sense of it, and then being able to teach people that. So the overview, the nutshell of all that is that I assist people in restoring their innate creativity. So when we're children, we're super creative, and often we tend to lose that. And I have a lot of ways in which I talk about how that loss happens, but then I also have ways in which I both speak about, but also demonstrate and help people with exercises and trainings to get them back into their creativity.
There you go. So you offer speaking workshops, consulting, and mentoring. Well, why is it important for people to get back to their creative selves, and whether it's from business or life, if they're a CEO, they're executive, an entrepreneur like myself, why is it important for us to get back in touch with that creative side?
Good question. I believe that all innovation comes from creativity. So if you are in a business and you want to design a widget and you get a team together, the all everything that leads to that innovation is going to come from the team's creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that it seems, in my analysis, that a lot of people are somewhat distant from their natural abilities to be creative. So it's important for people to learn what it takes to be creative and to start having that as an ongoing process, how to maintain that and sustain it in
Mm-hmm.
their life. I believe being connected to creativity adds to a person's life in general, but it
Mm-hmm.
certainly adds to your business life, your business culture, your whether you, even if you're not a, if you're not a business that's attempting to innovate, but I think all business are attempting to innovate.
Mm-hmm.
They should be focused on trying to make their businesses better and better and better. And to do that, I think the basis of that comes out of creativity.
There you go. And it really does. I mean, when you have to innovate, you've got to create. You've got to have out of the box thinking. You've got to have original sort of type of thinking. Or, we do a lot of creative swiping in corporate world, but you've got to be able to take someone else's widget and improve on it,
Exactly.
and all that good stuff. So, what's your origin story? What's your hero's journey? How did you grow up? Did you always know that you're kind of had that artist flair, or was it something developed?
Yeah, I always knew. I was always uh, drawing and painting. My mom was really good at giving me a bit of supplies that I could use, little watercolor sets, for sure, pencils and paper. Uh, and in my TEDx talk, I talk about kind of the a major event in my life that literally sparked a devotion to teaching myself to draw. And that started when I was about 10, and it just snowballed basically. And I knew I was an artist, and I just latched a hold of that and kept teaching myself. In junior high, I took one art class,
Mm-hmm.
and just after that, I started to teach myself to paint, using oil paints and brushes, not just watercolors. Or not to dismiss watercolors, but this was a step up from, in a way, taking myself more seriously and jumping into a concept that was. It's still, painting is very, very complex.
Mm-hmm.
But I taught myself to paint, and then eventually in high school, I took one art class. I did probably 25, 30 stretched canvases in high school, and they were large. Some were 6 feet by 3 feet, some 30 by 40 inches. So they weren't, a typical beginning painter paints on 8.5 by 11 size little canvases. So my thinking was big and without limit in a way. And then I decided to major in art rather than physics in college. Basically on the way down, driving from Omaha to Lincoln, Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
So on the way down, I thought, you know what, I'll go for art rather than physics, and which was a good idea.
It sounds like it turned out to be a good idea.
Yeah.
Much better life path fit.
I think so.
And some people do that. I've met people that went to college for ballet, and now they're CEO of a major, multi-billion-dollar company. You're just like, wow, that was a turn. But you try different things on, and you see what fits, and hopefully, if you're lucky enough, you find what fits.
Absolutely.
There you go. I'm still trying to go down to Ross and find what fits for me, but that's another story. So it's a wonderful journey you've been on. Like you say, and like we've talked about, being a CEO, being an innovator, being an entrepreneur, even just being a mother or a father, trying to be creative with your kids, kind of see that great creative mind. It's sad that we lose that sort of, we kind of close that off. We get busy in the mundane, I suppose, and social constructs that tell us, okay, well, you got to go to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this, and most people don't think outside of the box and think maybe there's a different way to do it.
For sure.
And then I think the other thing about art is is art is really kind of this just kind of came to me, so tell me if I'm right, but art is kind of a way of almost being present and having some gratitude and seeing the real beauty of the world. And sometimes that's what we lose as adults. We get lost in all the the rigmarole and making money and doing all the things we chase around in life, that we don't ever stop to see the scenery as it goes by.
For sure. And in a way, that's a great description of what often, especially I'm a visual artist, so it
Hmm.
speaks to me deeply, of taking time to look, taking time to, and not only look, but to see, which is sort
Hmm.
of different. We look at a lot of things, but when do we have the chance to really see what we're looking at? And then once we see it, what is the next step for me as an artist to pick that as something that I want other people to see, which
Hmm.
is a big decision. There are so many things in the world to look at,
Hmm.
and there's so many things that people have painted, and you get to the point where you have to look at the thing and say, all right, there's something important about that, and I want to make a painting of it. Just
Hmm.
as I think in a business, someone's business, they think, I want to do this service. I want to design this new service software, whatever it might be, to help people, or a new widget to help people, or whatever it might be. But it's taking all the things that people have invented and all the innovation that has happened. It's amazing. There are still things to offer people that
Hmm.
people are envisioning, and that, to me, the envisioning part is a creative process, and I just am passionate about helping people to get back into that.
There
The
you go.
There's a what you just said about the how people sort of lose track of being able to look and see. I call that creative colonization. And
Oh,
I believe when people are young, all of us from birth until 4, 5, 6, 7 years old are just wildly creative.
hmm,
You look at a bunch of 4-year-olds, they're doing things, they're playing, they're learning, they're using their imaginations. You can get 20 4 or 5-year-olds together from 20 different countries that they speak none of their languages, and they will invent a game.
wow.
They will just begin to play. Some, they may not all play together, but they might.
Hmm.
Some, maybe 10 will play with 10 others, or whatever it might be, but they will instantly start playing.
Hmm.
If you take 12-year-olds, that probably isn't going to happen. If you take 20-year-olds, definitely not going to happen. If you take a bunch of 40-year-olds, it's going to be a mess, right? Nothing playful or creative probably will come out of that. But so this is my part of my philosophy of creativity, is that as we get older, we've all experienced this. And I know from my experience growing up and all the people that I've communicated with and spoken to, and the stories that I hear, that at some point children just run out of time. And especially nowadays, when there's not only are there extracurricular activities, but there are screens that take people away from uh, their play.
Yeah.
So play is adamantly connected to learning. We learn as children and even as adults through our play. So play and imagination and creativity, I kind of put all together in sort of one thing. It's hard to tease them apart. You can, but it's not necessary.
So
But
do
that,
we have to reconnect to that play part of our brain of trying to find that enjoyment and that liveliness?
for sure, yeah. And it's a little picky, but I would say our mind, because I think
Hmm.
there's more to us than our brains are awesome. I
Hmm.
love that I have a brain. We can do this right now, but I feel like my mind has much more going on than just my brain.
It's
So
true.
minds gather information. You talk about uh, the experience of getting an idea. And so often people say, I have no idea where that came from. I've experienced it. I'm sure you've experienced it. And I'm not talking the invention of the light bulb kind of idea. Sometimes that happens, but I'm talking about ideas that are just like, wow, that's a really good idea. I should do that on the show, right? You're thinking, and suddenly it's like, oh, I got to do that. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? And I believe it comes from mind with a capital M. That's whatever we call that, God or spirit or whatever, the all that exists. We tune into something in just the right way at just the right time, and that's where the idea comes from. So,
is that the creative colonization?
well, the creative colonization comes when someone at home, someone out in the world, or someone at school, and often, sadly, and sometimes, mostly unintentionally, but sometimes intentionally, teachers will say things that will stifle or shut down a child's creativity. And that's what I describe as creative colonization.
Oh.
So it's just like the millennia of years of other cultures going into another culture and colonizing. They take away their traditions, they take away their religion, they take away their language. And that's what I chose the word specifically because I believe it is really intense for children to lose that connection to their creativity, because it is directly related to how they learn. They learn through their play, imagination, and creativity. So it's almost as if the colonization has taken away our original language of how we put the world together.
Because it becomes a group think, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, it is. Because all the kids are experiencing comments or experiences, events that shut their creativity down, or they hear something that it's like, ooh, I shouldn't dance anymore because the teacher and four of the kids made fun of me, and I'm not going to do that anymore. It's kind of self-preservation. So the colonization can happen in all these really subtle, different ways. Kids are super sensitive, and they're still learning. I mean, we're all learning about the world that never ends. But kids are sponges, so every little tiny nuance makes a impression on them and impacts them.
Yeah.
So when it's just that there's less and less time basically for children to be in their play, in their creativity, and in their imagination. So that's kind of the slow attrition of how creativity gets colonized. And then I describe creative collapse. And that's either because of the slow chipping away of children's creativity, or it's an event. And you may have had an event in your life as a child. I've talked to lots of people who say that this third grade teacher, we were doing this drawing exercise, and she took my paper up to the front and showed the class and said, "This is not how you do it. This drawing isn't good at all." I've had somebody tell me this story, and she didn't draw. That was third grade, and she didn't draw until we had a meeting, and she showed me a drawing of a plant the next day that she sent me, and that was the first time in 20 plus years that she hadn't drawn. And it was just a matter of basically giving her permission to go back in time in a way to reconnect with herself that knew it was a good drawing, but the teacher just happened to say, nah, that's not what
Teacher's one of the dumb art critics. I'm just kidding, people. It's the and what is the thing about art and beauty and everything else? It's perspective. So it's a subjective and perspective. But if you love doing something, I love doing certain things, and like my podcast, and sometimes I walk off a show and I'm like, I don't care if anybody listens to that show. I love that show. I had
Mhm.
fun. I learned a lot of shit, and I had an amazing, fun conversation. And I don't really care. It's a great show, and I don't care if anybody listens to it. And fortunately, people do listen to it. But having that perspective where you enjoy your art, you enjoy your work, and usually if you're good enough, you work hard enough and master it, it'll be there. Do you find that? What do you think about kids? One of the things that kids nowadays are really challenged by is they've cut a lot what they're available. I think they've cut art classes. I know they've cut like playtime, for recess and stuff. No, they've cut a lot of creative stuff like music and things like that. And then, now we have these devices that instead of like sitting around like you and I probably did as kids and we're like, hey, let's go, do something or make something or play with Legos or, play in the dirt with their Tonka trucks. They're basically kind of zombified where they're looking at their computers going drilling out the side of their mouth, and their creativity is stunted maybe because instead of coming up with stuff to do, they're just being programmed and fed.
Totally. Yes.
Mhm.
And the actually there are studies that go all the way back to the 50s with respect to television
Mhm.
and the detriment of television hours watched by children and how that affects all levels of cognition and interaction, communication. So on one level, in a way, academics and teachers have known, that was 70 years ago, that screen was detrimental. But then the development of these smaller and smaller screens are certainly detrimental for children. Are you know Speaking to that positive part of having a brain, our brains develop until we're 25 years old.
Ah.
So having a device that is sort of unconnecting one to the outside world, but also unconnecting them to their inside world is detrimental.
Mhm.
Children, I think it's unavoidable for children today to not have some level of connection to a screen, but I think that connection should be very, very limited and 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 shifted from into minutes rather than hours or tens of hours or however many hours the average is, which is probably scary to both of us if we knew.
Yeah, most definitely. One of the things is these kids. We've had some people that are like brain people, scientists, and they've said one of the problems that we have with their screens is that we see two dimensional,
Hmm,
and we're still not formatted as a species to see that and understand that. We're used to sitting across from each other on a human basis, touching, shaking hands, hugging, seeing facial expressions, reading them, body language, and stuff like that. And
absolutely.
and we lose a lot of that in the 2D screens, and our brains really struggle with the functionality of that in development. And so I think
Absolutely.
that's a big thing too.
Yeah. I just did a workshop uh, I was here at home. It was a workshop on Zoom with an audience mainly in Australia, but all over the world. And it was incredibly challenging. It was a good workshop, but
Mhm,
the challenge was that I could see people, but I couldn't see everybody.
mhm,
But in a room, I can feel the energy, for better term. I can see people's facial expressions as we do in a room of people if we're discussing things with folks. You can read their body language much better. You can sense if they are paying attention much
mhm,
better in a room with 10 or 100 people. Uh, so it was uh, much more exhausting to do that workshop than a workshop with people. With people, I get energized. But
mhm,
I was putting so much, in a way, I was putting so much energy into the screen, so to speak,
mhm.
but without being able to read it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like with you, I do a bunch of podcasts, and this is, even if it's only audio when it's put online,
Hmm.
I much more enjoy being able to see you right now,
Yeah.
because I can read you. I can see
Yeah.
that you just smiled.
Yeah.
That changes every. If I didn't see you at all, I wouldn't know how you took that. So
Yeah.
so I totally agree with this sense of the two-dimensionality of the screen, and how we need that three-dimensional interaction.
Hmm.
And
It's
I
so
don't,
important.
yeah, and I don't think it, who knows, it's just in the beginning, even though it's been around for 30 years. The VR is an interesting quality that is a faux three-dimensional reality. So at some level in our minds, we know that it's not real, but we suspend that. But how does that still almost translate as a two-dimensional experience, possibly, or one-dimensional? I think, I don't know.
There you go. So, unlocking the ability to be creative, be innovative. One of the challenges you get into when you own companies, or you're a CEO, or you're an entrepreneur, is you get locked in the whole MBAism of it.
Hmm.
The data, the numbers,
Yep.
the charts, the
Right.
surveys, and then you try and innovate, and you're trying to like, how can I create, and et cetera, et cetera. Tell us how you help open up that mind. I'll, as a side to, one of the problems I always have had in business was I can think from a business format, but all my offices have white walls. I don't, and so when I walk into like some nice restaurant like PF Chang's or something, and you see the artwork and the
Mm.
beauty and the, somebody, thought out how, everything is arranged and how it looks and how it appeals to the eye. I don't have that quality. I know how to build you a widget and black and white and all that good stuff. Tell us how you help entrepreneurs and CEOs and people break out of that and more into where they can be more creative.
Sure, that's a super question, and it's the beginning of it is where it's the most challenging part with respect to the intangibleness of
Hmm.
creativity.
Hmm.
And the point that I thought of a few minutes ago, and this was a great segue into that, is that what I'm doing is not teaching people how to make art.
Hmm.
I'm teaching people how to restore their connection to their creativity, which is two different things. If let's say I'm meeting with 10 CEOs,
Hmm.
and one of them, they all get something out of the workshop or the training
Hmm.
with respect to restoring their creativity, and one of them comes back to me, sends me an email 6 months later and says, "Patrick, I'm writing poetry."
Holy crap!
and I would do the same thing. I'd be like, "Oh, that's awesome."
Yeah.
And it wasn't my intention, but what I'm doing opens up that possibility, that valve, so to speak.
Hmm.
And basically that's a good analogy. Our valves through creative colonization and creative collapse get shut,
Hmm.
and I just help people nudge it open a little bit, and hopefully they'll turn it on full force. So if somebody calls back and says, "I'm writing poetry. I started a dance class. I picked up my guitar after 40 years." Those are all icing on the cake, right?
Yeah.
But my focus is to assist them into uh, rediscovering their creative energies, their creative sparks inside. And so one of the ways, or there are many ways that I approach this, but one of the ways, you kind of touched on it, that you have a white room that's, nothing's on the wall, and you go out at a restaurant and they're like, "Wow, this is cool."
Yeah.
There's plants, there's paintings, there's cool lighting fixtures. All of that exactly is designed, and it's designed from someone's creative energy.
Hmm.
They have an ability to picture the space and say, "You know what, we need this kind of lighting here. we need these kinds of plants, these, whatever it might be, the color scheme, all that goes into their creative sparks that happen in a space. One of the things I help people with is that they don't necessarily have to redesign their office, their cubicle, or whatever, but they need to bring something into their space, or a number of things that connect them to their sense of creativity. So this may mean this pushes people to reach back into their memory and say, wow, when I was 4 years old, what did I like to play with? You know, was it could have been Matchbox cars, or, you know, this would date me, of course. But, yeah. So whatever it might be, just if you have one still, or just go out and get one. Get on eBay and buy a matchbook car that you had possibly, you know, whatever, however many hundreds of decades ago it was. Bring that into your office, or you set it on your desk, but also have a few more things that are, and as different as possible. So I talk about the necessity, me as a visual artist, of having a studio that has stuff in it that makes no sense to anybody. And sometimes it doesn't make any sense to me, but I need it. For whatever reason, I need this shell, or this, I've collected a bunch of the outer shells of locust, right?
Oh, yeah.
I had one on my studio step the other day. It's on my Instagram, and I saw it coming out in the morning. I sit and I write in my journal, and I do a morning meditation drawing, and I saw it. It was just the wings were like this long at first, and then like an hour and a half later, the wings were all the way out. I took a photo of it, but I kept the little husk of what it was before. So you collect things that have an interest to you, that spark something. I encourage people to make a little pile of those things. So when you're needing to go into another space, if you can't make a whole room your creative room, look at that pile of interesting, wacky things, and it will help you get into the framework, because mindset is a huge part of creativity. You have to have ways to get into these mindsets that are outside of your normal way of doing routines. And that the creative essence happens in those other mindsets. I also encourage people to do what I call domain shifting. So there's a team of 10 people let's say you have a team, and you're going to design a widget, or you're going to design the new look for the Chris Voss Show for 2024. So what I would assign you is, for the next 4 months, in September, you're going to take your team, and all the team's going to have a team journal individually. You're going to have one as the team leader, and you're going to go to a jazz club and listen to jazz, and you're going to have your journals with you. And at some time during the evening, I encourage all of you to think about the project as you're listening to whoever's playing. Let's say it's a trio. You know, you're some guys just riffing on the sax, going just an amazing solo that lasts for like 4 minutes, and this gives you time to kind of sink into your project, and it will allow thoughts that are from all over the place to coalesce, and you can jot some ideas down, whatever they might be. It could seem like gibberish, and it may always seem like gibberish, but it might spark something. And if you put all 11 of you together, the 10 team members and you, then there's going to be a lot of thoughts that happen during the jazz concert that are going to be helpful to envision the new look of your show. Then the next month, I want you all to go to a museum. If you have a museum in town, if you have a gallery, either of those are fine. But use the time to walk through the gallery together with your notebook and jot little things down that just pop in. So this is cross-domain shifting. So you're not going to go, your team isn't going to go to the Patrick Williams show, and look at it. You could get information if I had a show like yours from sitting in on my show. Of course, you might get some ideas, but this shifts your mind into a whole new set of information that's coming at you. Then the next month in November, go to a poetry evening, or even a poetry slam, or even a hip hop slam, whatever, just to experience poetry. Same thing. Sit down at your tables, have a libration, write down in your journal things that come to you. Then the next month, and this one I really like, is that all of you find out what the 4 most interesting buildings are in your city, and you go visit them.
Like and those old cool looking buildings, or Art Deco type buildings.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So you spend time outside, you spend time inside, and you just allow, because when you're in a space like that, you can feel how much attention was given to the construction, the design, why the doors are the way the doors look. That was thought out. There was a very specific reason why the door looks like that, but why all the doors look like they do, because they all reflect all the doors, and what the windows look like, and how the windows reflect how all the windows look. They may change, but there is some kind of relationship that the architect, hopefully, if they're any good, had. The windows on the first floor are this shape and this dimension. The windows on the second floor are half that shape and half that dimension. On the third floor, they're a third, something like that. So there's always something going on that you can pick out that is specific to the architect and the architecture, that will also inform you, just like jazz will inform you and poetry will inform you.
There you go. And I love how opening up that valve, as you said it, basically creates a spillway to other things. And I wrote about this in my book, Beacons of Leadership, about how I would use getting away for the weekend with your yellow pad and just getting out of the environment. Because sometimes you sit in that office, man, and you got no new ideas.
Right.
And getting out of it into a new environment, being present in the world is super important. The thing I was going to ask you is, one of the things about being creative, is it like a muscle where, like, like with comedy, you have to keep writing jokes if you want to keep being funny. You have to keep practicing. If you want to write stuff, whether it's for a book or whether it's from just writing articles or poetry, you've got to keep writing. Is it like a muscle where you've got to, keep feeding that and keep working it out, like the gym?
Absolutely, for sure. And I believe that as an example, my Instagram PMW creativity is 6.5 years plus of basically drawing 2 circles and making marks. This year is a little different. 2023, I'm drawing 3 circles and making marks. In the year 2020, I drew the entire year. I drew everything with my non-dominant hand. I used my left hand to make all the drawings.
Oh, wow.
And that started out, the first 4 weeks was really clunky and really, really challenging for me, because it wasn't up to the feel that I wanted, but it became better and better and better as the year went on. So the concept is taking something and turning it into, instead of just a practice, turning it with a lowercase p, turning it into a practice with a capital P. So a practice with a capital P is how we exercise, if we think of it this way, the muscle of our creativity. Lowercase practices are not as focused, or they don't have the commitment that's necessary to to create something that begins to be meaningful to you on all levels. So when I'm doing the morning meditation drawing, it is both a practice and as the name implies, it's a meditation. It allows me to just not be concerned with what I'm drawing, but still make a drawing that is surprising to me. That's what I'm interested in. So
you do a morning meditation drawing? Is that
yeah,
every morning? Is that a
every
pattern?
morning. Yeah, every morning for
I like this idea.
like 6.5 years. And it's one of the exercises that I do with people is that I have them draw 2 circles and make marks, and then do it again, and then do it again, and do it again, and do it again, do it again. So when that happens, it gets people to loosen up physically. It gets people to loosen up mind-wise, and it allows, just like going to see the poetry or the architecture or the jazz, it softens your intensity of trying to get something to happen, right? Part of what we're doing is, and you mentioned this a couple times, is that you're going to have a meeting next week for the Chris Voss Show to redo 2024, and that meeting is, we're going to design everything that's going to be different. And it's like, no, you're not. It's a great idea. It looks great on paper, but it probably is not going to work. It's a process. You have to build up to exercising those creative muscles, so to speak.
There you go. I love this idea because I'm always trying to innovate. If you run a company, if you're a business entrepreneur, or you're just running your life, you've always got to be improving. You always got to be getting better. You always got to be seeking out, no matter how many times you innovate that widget, there's still more room for innovation.
Absolutely.
If you don't, your competitors will,
for sure.
And they'll beat you to the market. But having these sort of concepts like you do, recently I was suffering from a little bit of burnout, and I think it was last week. I just felt kind of beat up and run down, and we were pushing really hard for the end of the final fiscal year to get everything published, and I was feeling really burnt out. And so I did something that I used to do when I was a photographer for a while, where I used to go on day jaunts, and I would just drive up the coast of California. Nothing really, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just drive until you stop and see something and photograph it. And I would call it my wandering. What are you going to do today, Chris? I'm going to go wander around. I'll go down to Venice Beach, which you've probably been to, and it's a great place for artists. And there's a lot of interesting people there. It's so rich for art and interesting people and photography, because if you like weird people that are sometimes a little bit strange, it's a great place to go people watching. And so I would just sit I would get one of the restaurants where I could shoot my long 200 lens down. So, people really wouldn't pick up that I was photographing them. And, you're shooting down the boardwalk, and I would just shoot people. And it was just wild, some of the pictures you get, and how people are sometimes in their own thing, or if they're funky, very artist sort of people and they're moving, you just see all sorts of stuff at Venice Beach. And then what I did last week was I've gotten back into records. Metallica, this new album brought me back into records, and I have a huge record collection in the storage thing of a bunch of Rush collectibles. I'm a big fan of theirs and other bands. And it turns out LPs and records are back. Even tapes. They're making tapes now, cassette tapes again. And so I've started collecting stuff. And so I went and said, I'm going to go to record stores. I don't know about you, but in the old days, we used to go to record stores and spend 4 or 6 hours on a weekend looking at stuff, going to the thing. And I'm like, screw it. And there's actually some old ones that I used to go to like 20, 30 years ago that are still open.
Nice.
It's like, I'm just going to go record store hopping. And that's just what I did. I just went, was like, screw it. And I'm not really going to look for any sort of record. I'm just going to see what there is.
Perfect.
And it was fun. It was that old, beautiful smell of old records. And stuff.
Yeah.
And so sometimes just doing that, where you're in that creative process, like you've talked about, where there's really no agenda, But it's just agenda to be creative.
Absolutely. Yeah, you were domain shifting.
There you go.
Yeah, you were shifting out of your regular world,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, the one of the definitions of play, of true play,
Mm-hmm.
comes as a spontaneous and undirected process.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly what you just described.
Yeah.
You were like, you had the idea, the creative spark. It's like, you know what? I'm going to visit some record shops.
Yeah.
And
And
that was spontaneous and undirected. And you didn't have a goal. Like,
yeah.
I'm going to get 100 albums, or I'm going to get 10, or whatever. You were just like, that was play. That was pure, raw, childlike play, which is highly valuable. It's a gift. Yeah.
And then I got hungry, and so I kind of have this thing where I love trying new places to eat. I get tired of going to the same place.
Yeah,
Right? I know the menu. Some people like it and it's comforting, but I get tired of it. This is probably why I'm still single. And so I just put into Yelp and I look for some places. Turns out it's right around the corner from this old, like 1800s building that still had it was an old market store, and it still had these old thick rails that you would slide the meat on.
Oh, yeah, right.
And these rails are like from the 1800s. They're so old. The whole place was older than hell. And and it was a barbecue place, and it purported to have Texas barbecue, which in Utah, where I'm at right now, they don't. If they say barbecue, you're like, yeah, right, man. But it's got to have pickles and bread, white bread. And so I went in, and sure enough, they were bringing wood from Texas. They had all the Texas setup.
Wow.
And I had this great meal, and I discovered it on Yelp, and it was just total improv. Just like, I'm just gonna go eat at a cool place, try something I haven't tried before.
Fabulous.
And so I highly recommend what you recommend, and doing more of it. And maybe I need to do that morning meditation thing. I
Absolutely.
like that.
Yeah. And so swinging back just a little bit to your experience, tell me how did that affect where you started? You said you were feeling super stressed.
Yeah, I was pretty burnout and just kind of fried.
Right.
Like just fried. Like I'm tired of thinking about everything. I'm tired of having to do everything. I'm trying to be everything for everybody and, be the boss. I mean, that's one of the things that run you down as a CEO. You're like, the buck stops here. You're like, I want to go someplace where there's no bucks that stop anywhere.
Yeah. Right.
There's no one coming at me going, hey, we gotta have this right now.
Right.
You're not performing for people. We do a lot of that here on the show where it's a show. You come on, you perform for people. You're trying to make people laugh. You're trying to entertain them. You just kind of it's a bit selfish. You're kind of doing something for yourself. Yeah, just the wandering. And
so what did you feel like? What did you feel like during the wandering and then after?
I felt good, and it reset me. It refilled my cup, and I was able to come back and be like, "Hey, I feel good again." And you feel refilled. And then I had a sense of fun, and I probably felt creative, as we've talked about, and an adventure. And now I want to go do it again.
Good. I think that should be it. I think that's a great. If you're okay for, I'd love to use that, both the story, but also
please do.
But the title, The Wandering.
Yeah, Wandering.
That's perfect. It's a perfect way to describe it, and that's how you bring things into your existence. There's a great book that I it's just a really fun book, and I just discovered that this guy has published a few more. His name is Mason Curry, and the book is called Daily Rituals: How Artists Work. So in a way, it gives you an insight into both painters, writers, scientists, musicians, and he goes way, I don't know how far back he goes, maybe to the 1500s, maybe further, I can't remember. But one of the things that most everybody did, especially before 1900, was take walks. Just go outside.
Go the hell outside, people.
Who'd have thunk it? right? It's like, come on, just walk outside, just stand there at least. You don't even have to walk anywhere, but just get outside and stand in the sunshine or stand in the rain. Take your shoes and socks off and put your feet in the grass. That energizes your body beyond belief. But just that tweak to go out, sure, if you're in New York City, it's a bit of an issue, but you can get to Central Park and take a walk, and that's your best option. But it is nature, so take advantage of that. But taking a walk, just like the wander. I love that.
Yeah. And you're looking, you're not really looking for something, but if you see something, you do what you do in art. You appreciate it, and you create a memory point for it and stuff. But yeah, I love wandering, and one of the important aspects of that is, not really having an agenda. So my whole life is agenda. And at one time we had multiple companies, and it was a lot of work. And the only time I could really vacation was to get away for weekends. So I'd fly out to Catalina Island, or go someplace that you could do on a quick jaunt, or you can even go local and just run a bed and breakfast.
Sure.
Meet the people who run it. Go find someplace. I like to go someplace that's kind of off the city base. Although there are cool things in the city too, like we talked about when I went to the record store and buildings and stuff. But God bless them. Sometimes I'd have a girlfriend like, we have to have agenda. We have to have we got to do this. Where are we going for dinner? And you're like, hey, no. You don't understand. That's my whole life right now. Right.
Yeah. Right.
9 to 5. It didn't end at 5, but I just want to go wander. And sometimes it would make them mental, which is fine. And sometimes I just go on my own because I'm like, I'm just going to do what I want. And so I used to love to go to Catalina, and they're like, what are you going to do? I don't know, I'm just going to walk around the beach. And I go out on Catalina. I'd sit at 3 a.m. in the morning,
nice,
in the middle of the night. And like you say, put my feet in the sand and just hear the waves.
Totally.
See the lights and think of all the people that have been there. And
for sure.
I love doing things that are kind of solitary too. Like last night I was at the gym, I think about 3 or 4 a.m. and there was almost nobody in it. It was just so nice just to be able to walk around and kind of do whatever I wanted, lift what I wanted.
Right.
And I have to wait for a machine.
Yeah. Nobody's watching.
Yeah, nobody's watching. Yeah. I don't have to look at all the chicks and go, hey, I should ask her out. So anything, our final words as we go out, anything you want to pitch, or any final thoughts you have?
I have a few final thoughts, but a short story
about
wandering. When my wife and I went on our honeymoon, we flew into Merida in the Yucatan, and I said, let's rent a car. And we rented this little red VW bug. And she said, well, where are we going? And I said, let's go that way. And we just drove off and we discovered all kinds of stuff. And we eventually drove kind of west until we got to the Caribbean, and we had reservations a week later. But that week in between, we did what you were, the wander. We just wandered around from city to city and discovered things. And it was quite remarkable.
You must just flip a coin. Should we go left or should we go right?
Exactly. And you will discover things. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, the first time I discovered Caprese was on that 4th Street walk, I think in Santa Monica. Is it the 4th Street walk? But they have all these great restaurants, and they have a throughput where everyone can walk through between all these great food and buildings and shops and stuff.
Nice.
4th Street Promenade. There's one in Denver too. I might be confusing it with.
Right. 16th Street in Denver.
Yeah, 16th Street is so awesome.
Yeah.
And even then, I've had different, just wandering through there. I've had different amazing places I eat. And I discovered Caprese salads one time, went in this great place. And they're like, I was like, let's try this buffalo Caprese salad thing. And I've been in love with them ever since. But I remember that moment to this day. And I was like, wow, what if I turn left instead of right?
Right.
Yeah. You just never know where life's
You just never know. Yeah.
So give us your final thoughts and plugs as we go out on the show, please.
Sure. Well, I just really enjoyed our conversation, Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. Final plugs. I'm available for people who are interested in taking their innovation to the next level. And I can be reached. My email is patrick@patrickwilliams.com. I bought the domain in 1997, patrickwilliams.com. So it has been with me all these years. You can look me up on SatoriInnovation.com, patrickwilliams.com, celebrationflowerpaintings.com. And I'd be happy to help whoever is out there and interested in learning more about their creativity.
There you go. There you go. Well, it's been wonderful and very insightful. I've learned a lot, Patrick, to have you on the show, and you've given me some tools that I can use as a CEO to, go out, get out of my little four walls, out of my box, and go focus on some beauty. And I'm going to go do more wandering.
More wandering is absolutely awesome.
Yeah, because eventually, the older I get, the more I'm probably going to wander. But mostly, Drew will be coming down the side all the time. Where am I?
Don't get hit by a bus.
Yeah, don't get hit by a bus. That's bad. I'm almost there now. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, and TikTok at Chris Voss 1 and the Chris Voss Show podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.